Hello and welcome to Brain Software Podcast, episode 156, coming to you almost live from the Hypnotic World Epicenter, Toronto, Canada. I'm Mike Mandel, and today Chris Thompson and I go to All About Beliefs Part 2, so stay tuned and change your mind.
Hello, dear friends. It's wonderful to be here, dear friends. And it's so nice to speak to you, dear friends. But in these troubled times, dear friends, I think what's needed here, dear friends, is time. Time spent in freedom. Freedom from interference and freedom from ants. Because, dear friends, we're on a train, dear friends, and we want to train you, dear friends, and that's why we're here, dear friends. We're not here for Zodiac, but we are here for Jack Ruby and Clay Shaw and David Ferry too. But enough about old friends. Whatever happened to that old tranquility we used to know? We are not witches! So welcome to the Ford Theater of Hypnosis, where the grassy knoll is green and stunning, and Abraham Zapruder is still filming. Here's the British-born answer to the Texas School Book Depository, Mike Mandel.
Yes, Christopher, I am here. We are live, and I've just got a pet peeve. I've just got to talk to you about this just before we go into this. You have no idea where I'm going.
No, I don't.
Driving here to Hypno East from our cabin on Bob Lake this morning, I passed two men, one of whom was slightly older than me, and the other was about my age. And I don't know what happens to guys, Chris.
Did you stop to ask them?
No, one was on the left-hand side of the road, and he was pausing with his camera to photograph this river, which is relatively harmless, one would think, except his garb. He was wearing the turquoise golf pants with sandals and socks, and he had on the golf shirt and the bucket hat with all the pins on it of all the wheelchair accessible golf courses he'd been to around the world. And I'm just looking at him going, this smacks of resignation. This guy has given up on life. Then I went about a bit further. You know Miners Bay? I went through Miners Bay, and there's a guy attempting to cross Highway 35. And this guy's maybe 70. Now, I'm 67.
This is a country road, Highway 35.
He's about 70. He's standing there waiting to cross. Chris, the man had on khaki shorts that were pulled so high he could have worn a frickin' belt for a bow tie. And he had the knobby knees and the skinny legs from no exercise. And he was wearing dress socks, navy blue dress socks, pulled up to his knees with sandals. Of course, his wife has let him get out. I'm assuming he's married, and he's got a weird kind of shirt on. But the worst part was he was gaping in the gapery. He was standing
with this just wide open mouth,
waiting for cars to stop so he could cross. His arms clenched in fists at his side, a half crouch, his mouth open about 4 inches, staring at cars like he'd never seen them before. I just wanted to scream, "You gaping at the
We call it gaping in the gapery.
So he needs an actual room, a gapery to go and gape in.
To have your mouth gaping open like you're just awkwardly frozen in time with this open mouth.
It made me want to murder in the murdery. What is with guys?
That's hilarious.
Don't get freaking old. You don't have to get old, you know? Like
when he was watching the cars go by, did he shout, "We are not witches"?
No, he didn't. If he had shouted that, it might have freed him.
That would have been okay.
Anyway, that's just
all right.
Drives me
so
nuts.
We are here. We're at Hypno East. We're recording 156, and this is All About Beliefs Part 2. Before we dive into it, we're going to do a quick. What do we want to promote? I haven't even planned it, but I'll tell you what. I want to remind everyone. There's a couple of things here I want to mention. We put out our Easy Self-Hypnosis course fairly recently. You can find it at mikemandelhypnosis.com/ESH, which is just nice and short for Easy Self-Hypnosis. I'll just say this. The feedback on the course has been tremendous. And the easiest way to access the course, to purchase it /access it, is to get it as part of our personal growth membership. You'll see two options on the page, the Easy Self-Hypnosis offer page. You can either buy it or you can just get it included in the personal growth membership, which is $27 a month. And it is the best deal out there for people who want personal development stuff, but aren't really interested in the formal hypnosis training. We'll use hypnosis with you. We'll show you hypnotic language patterns and things like that. But it's about applying this stuff to yourself. So check it out, MikeMandelHypnosis.com/ESH. And maybe, once COVID is over, we'll get back to actually having live events and being able to promote those
Wouldn't that
instead.
Be nice?
Okay, on with the show. We're gonna talk about beliefs. Lots of good stuff.
Let's talk about our think tank words first.
Yes.
And for those of you just getting into this the first time, we recommend you listen to the previous episode of Brain Software 155, where we started talking about beliefs. We're continuing with that in depth today, including how to change beliefs that are less than empowering. And we have the think tank words, which are randomly generated words that we use to stimulate our brains to tie these words into the podcast. And it's a really useful tool.
Yeah.
Your brain works best in stepping stones. It's very creative when you tie together random thoughts. So our first word from the actual Savo Bukacek think tank is diuretic. What do you got there, Chris?
Oh, this is interesting.
I know you're going to go to diarrhea right away.
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
Just immediately
We'll edit that out.
thinking about the kidney and filtering toxins and
Michael C. Anthony.
urination.
Yeah.
Because urinate in the Enneagram model. I know that to be true.
That's true.
And
That's very clever.
so when urinate, how do you feel about confrontation?
Well, I feel that you need a new direction.
I know. Oh, boy. Okay. So diuretic, I think about a chemical like caffeine or even alcohol, I suppose, is a diuretic. Things that make you urinate.
Red wine is the best diuretic because it will tend to remove just excess.
And when it comes to
water
beliefs, I'm thinking about taking something in that helps you expel what you don't want. Now, in this case, you obviously want water in your body. You don't want to be peeing out all your water. But if you could think about it as what is the diuretic that you can use to get rid of old beliefs that are no longer useful, that would be
so
cool.
you could be peeing in the peery.
Yes, there you go.
That's the more polite version of what I nearly said.
Urinating in the natery. There you go.
Okay, that's clever. I'm not going to try to top that. That's really, really solid.
All right, we'll move on to
about
word
tactics?
Well, tactics. So tactics, I think about as
this is the second word, by the way.
Yeah, I think about tactics as specific things you do to implement strategies. So that I know this is not a particularly creative answer.
No,
it's
I was
just
about to comment on that. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead though.
No, I was going to comment on how uncreative it was.
That was a really uncreative response.
You basically just gave me a definition of tactics, like not applying it to beliefs.
Yeah, how do we apply it? So
here's how I look at it, buddy. Strategy is the overall plan, the big picture. And they say no battle plan survives first contact with the enemy. So no matter how well you plan something out, once there is resistance and a real problem develops, whatever, the plan has to be changed, evolved, whatever. Tactics to me, are the back and forth, adaptation of behavior, as things change.
Right.
These are the small chunks.
Well, that sounds way better than what I said.
Well, remember too, armchair generals talk about tactics and strategy. Real generals talk about logistics.
Yeah.
Supply routes and things like that, or routes if you're British.
And if you want to adjust your tactics to go after the same strategy, once you've defined your strategy, you're going to pick the tactics that you want to throw at the problem, right? And if those tactics aren't quite working, you can shift them, but still overarchingly are attacking the same strategic goal.
Which is where the diuretic comes in.
Whereas if you say, you know what, this strategy is stupid, let's change strategies, then you're throwing all your tactics out the window and you're coming up with something brand new.
Right. That's not bad at all. That's not bad at all.
So that might be where.
So our third word is volume.
Volume.
You know, the first thing that comes to mind with me, a friend of mine, Rick Hellman, years ago, funny guy. I'm convinced he was the guy that Mike Myers modeled his character on for Wayne's World. He was just like that. And he was really interesting. But he had an orange Volkswagen Beetle, and he had a pin on the mirror inside, and it said, if it's too loud, you're too effing old. So volume was his thing. But what I'm thinking too is, you notice some people, it's a communication tool. They think that comprehension increases with volume. So they just get louder and louder.
What do you mean by that, Mike?
Yeah.
What are you trying to say?
I go to my wife's brother's place, and they just get louder and louder as conviction increases, shouting at each other. But as far as your beliefs go, maybe you can turn down the volume on the beliefs that are not useful.
Oh, I like it.
Turn up the volume so you're hearing the internal voice. Remember, you can change the internal voice directly. Richard Bandler did significant work on that. This person says, well, I get a little voice in my head that tells me I can't do it. And he'd say, whose voice is it? It's my mom's voice.
Yeah, their volume is analog, right? If you turn the sound off, that's digital, on, off. But most of the time, people think about it as a sliding scale with a power level, and you dial up the power or down the power. And same thing with beliefs. Perhaps there are times where a certain belief just really doesn't need to have a front row, full volume.
That's good.
Position.
Okay. Now let's do a quick review of what we did in the previous podcast. 155, we began talking about beliefs, and we were mentioning how beliefs they function as ways of exploring our reality tunnels and making them true. Beliefs are self-confirming. So when we believe something, we look for evidence to support it. We seldom challenge that belief. And beliefs may be true, and they may be accurate. They may be completely inaccurate. It's irrelevant. The point is, are they useful?
Oh, sure. And a perfect example would be, you've got a coffee cup here in front of you. If you believe coffee is good for you, you can simply head to Google and confirm your own bias. Is coffee good? How is coffee good for me? If I type in that, I'm going to get all kinds of articles explaining how coffee's good for me. Contrary, if I believe that coffee's horrible for me and it's going to cause every disease known to man. Yeah. I could type into Google, why is coffee bad for me?
Did you say the Google?
The Google. No, I didn't. You get the idea, right?
No, I do. Yeah. I hear you. And the confirmation bias kicks in with our beliefs. It's funny because my wife uses Google as her personal oracle, but she always goes at things being an Enneagram 6 with a 5 wing and a phobic 6. She always goes towards the negative. Yeah. So if I had I had a little red spot on my forearm here, I'd be Googling and saying, what are red spots on the forearm? And she'll be Googling and asking,
are red spots on the forearm a sign of cancer?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's where she'll be
something
going
like that. Yeah.
She'll go to the worst case scenario. But if we, we adopt the phrase, here's an interesting way of looking at beliefs. Ask yourself, finish the sentence. Life is, and there's the ellipsis.
Ooh,
how do you finish that, Chris? What is life?
Fun.
Fun. Well, that's because it's your word
awesome.
right now.
Yeah, that's true. My word for the year is fun.
So your belief
life is fun, and it damn well better be, right?
Yeah. Well, you don't finish the sentence. Life is dangerous.
Yeah.
Life is cancerous.
That is a really good test, Mike, for beliefs. You're right. It's and you've got to answer it quickly, spontaneously, without any thinking, just what jumps out at you.
And once you have, then you can unpack it. Like, what else is life?
Everyone listening will have answered that question before I did. Everyone listening will have had an answer in their mind before I said fun. What was it?
Even if it's only life is time wasted listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
We'll edit that out for sure. Life is editing it out. So we're going to continue. The first point I wanted to look at was explore your beliefs. What does your belief enable you to do, first of all? So let's say you have a belief that you're confident and that you're assertive. What would that enable you to do?
Oh, well, that'll enable you to go out and get the jobs that you want, talk to the people that you want to talk to, not have people abuse you with stupid policies, for example.
You see, you're bristling at this.
I'll actually give you a quick example right now.
Please do.
I put on my
stopwatch is running.
I put on my assertive ego state the other day because we've got a company that every 3 years or so, they come and they rebuild our whole house water filtration system that our friend Ryan had recommended I install when I move here.
Right.
And the company did a wonderful job, and he actually made a very good recommendation. But for whatever reason, they rezoned and they determined that my little town is no longer in their coverage area. And so on top of paying what I thought was quite reasonable fee for the rebuild of the carbon filter, it's $149 each way for travel, Mike. So another $300 on top. And I had originally said, oh, well, that's unfortunate, but okay, book the appointment, thinking I'll look into it later, but I'll book the appointment. I don't have to pay any money.
Yeah.
For now. I look at their website and I see that the border is literally, I could jog to the border in 10 minutes.
Are you considering moving your house?
So I sent an email and said, please cancel the appointment. I am no longer interested given the fee unless you're willing to discuss this border issue. I'm literally 5 minutes outside of your border and I don't think it's reasonable. And I got an email back saying, well, please call us to discuss. And I simply assertively stated what I want to have happen.
Right.
I she said, oh, I've been given the go ahead to talk to you and be flexible on this fee. And she revealed to me that she was able to go down to half price. And I said, well, what I want to have happen is that you charge me absolutely nothing for the travel, given that I believe I paid this same fee that I shouldn't have paid 3 years ago. And I'm 5 minutes outside of your border. By the way, you might want to consider rezoning because our town actually has really bad water and you'd get a lot of business. And I built rapport with her and just said what I wanted to have happen, but I was assertive getting back to that.
But without, hurling colorful abuse.
Yeah. Very polite, very friendly, but assertive with no rush. Oh, well, I'm not authorized to do that for you, sir. No problem. I know you need to look into it. I'm going on vacation next week. You can get back to me anytime.
Okay, now here's the question. So that belief of assertiveness enables you to deal with something like that. Now, does that belief prevent you from doing anything?
I think it prevents me from the bad stuff, which is like to just roll over and play dead. I'm not just going to let people walk all over me.
Ah, that's good. Yeah, that's right. Of all the nines I know, you're the least sort of able to let people walk all over you.
Yeah, but I would suppose it also has this
fair.
It also has this assertiveness also gives me this feeling where if somebody speaks about, let's say, something scientific, and I just know they're full of crap.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just won't let it go, and
I've seen you do this.
I'll call them on it and say, this is a bunch of garbage.
I've seen you do this with Ryan.
Yeah. I've done this with a lot of people, and preferably friends who I know aren't going to take it the wrong way. But if I do that with a stranger, it's obviously going to kill rapport. So being assertive can be a rapport killer, depending on what tactics I use to implement it. There you go, tactics.
We're
like
back
that.
to tactics. Nice. Now, the thing is, beliefs have a structure, and it's one of two structures. This is what I really like. It's very scientific here, so you like this. It is either A means B, or A causes B.
Yeah.
And A or B might be completely unconscious, and very often that's the case. So when someone says, well, I believe there's just too much immigration in this country.
Mm-hmm.
That's their belief, right?
Yes.
Or they don't even say I believe. They say there's too much immigration in Canada. And you can use your meta model. Well, compared to what?
Yeah.
Because we're dealing with.
Or you can, I guess you can get to the rest of the structure, right? So,
right,
well, what does the immigration cause?
Or you can say, how do you know that? Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that? Those are your two wonderful questions. So you need them
to flesh out the A means B or the A causes B.
You're looking for the A.
Yeah. In this case, it's, well, are you looking for the A or the B? Because if they're saying, let's say they claim there's too much immigration. Well, immigration is the A in my mind, and it has to cause B, or I suppose it could be the other way around.
Remember, it's the belief A causing B. It's not the immigration. It's what is the A that caused them to believe that there's too much immigration.
Oh, got you. Okay. Yeah. So B is the belief in this case?
Yeah, caused them to believe that. Or how does A mean that?
Okay.
And we'll see this with complex equivalents. Remember when I was at the CN Tower, top of Toronto restaurant with Gary Fu years ago, and he said, oh, your body language shows that you're close to this conversation. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you got your arms folded like that. I said,
so your arms folded was
means
the B. The A. Your arms folded is the A, and the B is, it means that you're not open.
Yes. His belief is that I'm not open to the conversation. That's the B. But the A that means that is that my arms are folded.
Okay. So in the case of this.
I said, well, actually, I have a bad neck, a chronically bad neck. When I sit like this, it extends my trapezium muscles and it takes the pain away. So we're back to, does it mean that or does it cause it? But in any case, there will always be this kind of A and B structure with a belief. Nobody has a belief just from nothing.
Right. Okay. So if somebody claims there's too much immigration, they could be thinking that too much immigration means that, I'm going to make something up. Taxes have to be higher to support whatever it is. I don't know. I'm completely at a loss here. I'm not all that economically and politically interested in things, but
well, you talk about them a lot for somebody who
isn't. Could it be that the A is the immigration that causes B, which is some perceived problem in the person's mind? Or could it be that the B is the immigration, the A is, well, we have too lax policies that's causing.
I think you're making it overly complicated.
Yeah, I'm just wondering,
what's the belief? The belief is there's too much immigration.
Okay.
So you say, how do you know that's true? Or how did you come to that belief?
That would be the question.
I came to that belief when my father taught me that this should, and that there's the A now. You
so
found
my dad
how it installed.
believes this, therefore
people
that causes me to believe this.
Yeah. So, but let's move on from that, because the key is, what is the positive intention behind your belief?
Yeah.
There will be a positive intention somewhere.
Absolutely agree with that. And that's so, okay. I like that we're getting to, how do you know that's true, or how did you come to believe that, or whatever it is. You're looking at the epistemology.
Right.
And then that will help you understand the A means B, or A causes B structure. And then the positive intention will be just this idea that generally people are good and that they want good things to happen. So if they believe, well, there's too much immigration and they want there to be less immigration, they believe that perhaps the country is better off with less,
right.
or the
that would
economy
be their
is
positive
stronger.
intention.
There's going to be something. Whether they're right or wrong is irrelevant.
It might even be with too much immigration, and of course, Chris and I do not believe this, but if they
purely example, folks.
Yeah, if they say something like, oh, there's too much immigration, and you find out through astute questioning, the positive intention is, well, if there's too many people in this country from anywhere, there won't be enough jobs for my kids when they're adults.
Yeah,
so there's the positive intent. But here's the thing. Many beliefs are for survival. They're built into survival mechanisms. And you can ask yourself, how strong or weak is this belief? Now we're looking at the flip side of Pantalon here with instant influence.
Oh, totally.
Remember, he'd say, how ready are you to begin your workout?
Yeah, in this case,
on a
you're going to say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how strongly do you believe
that is true?
True? Yeah.
Now they say, well, I believe a 7 out of 10. Then you ask, why didn't you choose
pick
a higher number?
An instant influence.
It's the other one.
Yeah,
but in this, you're saying, why didn't you pick a higher number?
Right.
In other words, well, that will immediately expose the areas of uncertainty.
Absolutely, because
they've really put time into this. This is freaking brilliant.
If somebody picks a 6,
Looking
well,
for
I
validation.
believe this to be true on a 6 out of 10. That's a medium kind of belief. And well, why wasn't it a higher number? Why wasn't it an 8 or a 9 or a 10? What would have to happen? What evidence would you have to come across to get to a 10 where you're certain this is true?
And this gives something to check back to later. Well, you said it was a 6 out of 10. So you're moderately certain, but why didn't you pick a 7 or an 8? Yeah. And that causes the person to begin to explore the belief and to intentionally look for things to disprove it, to falsify it.
It starts to separate the belief from the evidence itself.
Yeah, that's good, Chris. Well put. Well put. You can ask, how true is this for you right now on a scale of 1 to 10? And of course, the book you just got me to read, which I finished, by the way.
How to Have Impossible Conversations.
Yeah, when he taught, and it was interesting because I'd formulated this before he talked about similar things in the book.
And it was so overlapping nicely with the stuff
and with Jamie
already,
Smart's Belief Buster cards, too.
Right.
I went through those as well. And the classic NLP stuff. So the thing is interesting, that's interesting about this is when you're saying, how true is this for you right now on a scale of 1 to 10?
It's about you.
It's about you. Why didn't you pick a higher number? You don't want to deliver a message. Well, you're wrong because of this. The boundary comes up right away.
The thing I picked up from that book that I loved, I think I sent you a long Voxer message when I was on a walk one night, listening to the audiobook, saying this was phenomenal because now I lost my point because a message just popped up on my screen. Here, you talk and I'll get back to my thread in a second.
Okay. So the point is, when you just proclaim that the person is wrong, you're delivering a message.
That was it.
And people don't want that at all. So immediately the door goes down, they stop listening. But when you ask the questions that cause them to evaluate it, there's no threat to them.
That's exactly,
especially if you have rapport.
That's the point I wanted to bring up. So the authors make the claim that you should essentially never try to change someone's beliefs by
delivering a message,
telling them like, you're wrong because here's all the reasons that your belief is bullcrap.
Yeah. And you can have all the data in the world.
All they will do is cement themselves in like a tree in the ground, root into their beliefs and not want to change. They'll want to push back and you'll kill rapport. Instead, he's saying you always want to ask the right kinds of questions to get them to think about the reasons behind the belief and challenge whether that's true or not.
Right. And keeping the rapport and not trying to nail the person, that will help them. One of the strongest things you can do yourself, and a lot of these you do on others, a lot of them you can do on yourself, to challenge a belief, use the as-if frame. I'm huge on the as-if frame. If you believe the opposite of this, how would you behave and how would your life change? So put that on for a minute. Put it on that you're a person who believes, in this case, there's not enough immigration. You know, Canada's a huge country. We have much to offer. And congruently put that on for a minute and project it. How would things change if you adopted that? Would it be useful?
Yeah, that'd be very interesting, wouldn't it? Because somebody who really believed, oh, there's too much, then if they took on that as a frame, they might realize, well, companies like Google were started by immigrants.
Yeah, yeah.
Companies like...
And I'm an immigrant.
In fact, same with Tesla. Elon Musk was from South Africa, right? The Tesla would not exist if he hadn't gone to the United States.
I was wondering how far you'd go before you
brought up Elon Musk. Yeah, but you get the idea. That's a great use of the as-if frame that, well, here are all these things that... In other countries, there's immigrants have started some of the biggest, most successful companies in the world.
Right. Yeah.
In Canada, we have like Shopify.
And again, I am an immigrant, so I can say all this. Yeah. This is very interesting, though. And the as-if frame, remember, you act congruently, behave as though you have that resource or whatever it is. Now, let's say this is someone who has the belief, I can't speak in front of a group. I just can't. And I would challenge that. I'd say, at all. And they'd say, no, I can't. I get all nervous and tongue tied. Can you speak in front of your wife? Well, yes. Can you speak in front of your kids? Yeah. Oh, so you can speak in front of a group. Yeah. So now the belief is beginning to be challenged.
And they start cementing in though and say, well, no, but that's not what I meant, Mike. I meant, groups that aren't my family.
Okay. So what makes the difference if you're not related to them DNA wise?
Well, they know me. They're blah, 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 blah. They know that I'm just their dad or husband, and it's okay. They don't think I'm a stranger.
Right.
And then now we get into the whole, so it's strangers.
It's strangers, yeah. And what would happen? Oh, and by the way, psychologists say the reason people are afraid of speaking in front of groups, which has reduced since social media and stuff, it's all the faces in silence looking at you. That fires a thing of a pack against you.
Yeah.
Whereas I just don't freaking care.
Yeah, exactly.
But so when you ask the person this sort of thing and challenge it, how would your life change if you acted as if you were a great public speaker? How would you move? How would you stand? How would you breathe? When the person adopts this several times, guess what? The belief will change.
So this is interesting because in the last podcast, in 155, part 1, we talked about DILTs and logical levels and identity and how when the identity changes, the beliefs will cascade down.
Right.
The as-if frame, in a way, makes you step into a new identity.
Yes. And then adopt new behaviors. You're not changing at the level of behavior. Although, if people say fake it till you make it. We don't say that. We say fake it until you become it.
Yeah, except for brain surgery.
And flying planes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, airliners, yeah. But okay, so the as-if frame is a wonderful tool, but you've got to be calibrating the entire time. The Mike Mandel ABC, always be calibrating. You've got to be looking at the person. You've got to be noticing the shifts. My wife is really good at delivering messages. She's a very smart woman, and she's very opinionated, and she makes no apology for that. And I don't expect her to. It's one of the things I love about her. You get the truth from her. But she's learned that you cannot just throw this stuff at people because it puts up walls and people get pissed off and don't want to be around you anymore.
So you mean you can't just throw at someone the challenge like, well, how would your life be different?
I read this. I've studied this and, all this stuff, whatever it is. And I could bring up a host of topics here that she's very well versed in. But she is learning to calibrate. See, her family, with the people she had conversations with, I don't think any of them calibrated anybody.
No.
Just I can say that because I'm related to them. But you've got to calibrate. You've got to see, is the person furrowing their brow, going all quiet and weird now? And I remember in our hypnosis class in Toronto 6 years ago when our friend Raheem came up for the first class.
Yes.
Neuroscience.
Oh, I remember this. I know exactly where this is going.
And in the class, at the end of an exercise, he's frowning and he's walking around frowning. And I picked up on this really quickly.
Yeah, you thought that he was going to tell you that he was not buying into any of this.
I didn't think that. I wanted to ensure that it didn't mean that.
Yeah.
I said, Raheem, I notice you're walking around frowning and you're not saying anything. He said, oh, sorry. And he's a big smile. And he said, that's just how I process. I'm processing everything. I had calibrated it, but I didn't put my interpretation on it.
Yeah. And when you asked him, he told you, I think, if I remember correctly, he said, this class is blowing my mind.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And you want to put the client always back in process. Remember, Chris and I do not like stuck states. A stuck state is a huge limitation.
Well, I noticed you just said this when you were describing your wife. She is learning to calibrate.
Yes.
You put it in process.
And now she's learned to offer them the golden bridge.
Right.
So which is the escape route. So if she's saying something and the person's getting their back up, she now knows to offer them the way out and say, but you know, it's a matter of opinion. I guess none of us know for sure. Something like that. And everybody relaxes again.
Yeah. In fact, that book, How to Have Impossible Conversations, one of the things he talks about early on is I say he because I listened to the audiobook, which was narrated by one of the authors. There's actually two authors. Right. So I feel bad now because I'm a 9 and I feel like I'm breaking rapport with the other author. But anyway, they talk about the idea that you should model what you want to have happen. So if you want to give someone the feeling that you're not being overly assertive and pushy, you want to model the options. Like, well, although not everyone needs to believe this, whatever it is, or, you know, there are lots of different ways of attacking a problem or solving problems in the world. Yeah. And not everyone's going to agree with my perspective, whatever it is. Give people, model the idea that you accept that there are options. For example.
And different beliefs. And by putting them back in process, like a person says, I can't speak in front of people. You can ask questions like, how can you learn to really enjoy public speaking? You know, what can you do to increase this wonderful skill? The key is, guys, when you're challenging a belief, never ask them a closed question that can be answered with just a yes or a no. Yeah. You know, can you change this? No. No, what will you do to change this?
Open questions are much better. Yeah.
Because they will cause transderivational searches where your brain will go through I just pinched my nose is why my voice went weird at that moment. My nose like that.
Do you think you can change that? No, I don't. I've always been that way. Bad question. Bad question. Yes or no question.
And the way of doing this is focusing on the outcome. How wonderful will you feel when you completely overcome this? Or if you learn to do this, what might be great about it?
What about what has to happen?
Oh, perfect. You're finding the intermediate step. Or if you put it back at cause, what will you have to do in order to make this a reality?
Yeah. Another one you can use is, who do you know that ... Right now you can start to look for ways that they can model someone who's already got that
which is again the as if frame.
Right.
So we're back to that. And that's a wonderful trait. And a great phrase that we have in our power language is and yet.
I was just talking to my wife this morning about the and yet pattern because it's a great one.
It causes reconsideration when someone says, I can't learn anything new. I just can't. And you say, and yet, that's something new that you've just learned about yourself, isn't it? And you can add a tag question that, you can break these things up. I urge everybody listening to learn the meta model by Mandel and Grinder. The simplest form of it is found in Tony Robbins' first book, Unlimited Power. He teaches in one chapter the power of precision. He shows a very simple way of learning the meta model. And it's a great way of helping people connect to the deep structure where these beliefs are held in the first place.
Dude, did you know that Unlimited Power is like the first NLP book I ever read, man?
Man, it's awesome. Scroll, I read it first too, man.
Yeah, it's a fantastic
book. Far out.
Love it.
You know, and find ways to reframe the belief.
Yeah, let's talk about
There's either context reframe or content reframe.
Yeah.
You want to address that?
Yeah, so a context is about the situation. So, for example, we've often talked about on the podcast the idea that if you paint your face blue and start screaming,
yes, I have,
then you might be considered insane. But if you do it at a Maple Leafs hockey game,
it's considered appropriate.
It's totally
behavior.
fine.
Yes.
That's the
context creates meaning.
Right. The content. You do content.
Well, changing the content is if you could be working with some modalities. If you see yourself speaking in front of an audience, that's your framework, and you see yourself as very small and nobody listening, change the content of how you see it. See yourself as gigantic and everyone staring in wonder. You've changed the content now. You've reframed it in submodalities, changing the context. Let's say the person says, well, I'm just too aggressive. Context says, what context might the aggression, that aggression be the perfect response?
Yeah, if you're a jiu-jitsu fighter and you're in the cage, probably a good skill.
Yeah. Or someone attempts to rob you and your wife, you know, to be able to annihilate them. Like I wanted to annihilate the poor man who was gaping in the gay parade this morning, but I won't go there again. So clearly still have issues about it. I'll do some work on that. But yeah, that's a context reframe. What context would it be useful? You're changing the meaning. The content reframe, of course, another is changing the meaning of it.
I was just going to ask
finding
you for
a context
another.
where it's useful. The classic NLP one, the woman who pathologically vacuumed the house because she couldn't stand the footprints, even in stocking feet on the floor, on the rug. And
that was a content reframe.
That was
right?
content.
Yeah,
it's reframed as these footprints mean you're not alone.
Yeah, let's break that one down because I was actually thinking of exactly that one. I was going to ask you for another content reframe, and that's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. I was just thinking
it was in one of the Bandler and Grinder books. I believe it might have been in Frogs into Princes.
I think it's in Reframing.
Or Reframing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the woman had this pathological need to vacuum the carpet so that there were no footprints or any kind of, the marks in carpets, right? And the therapist asked what the footprints mean, and they meant to her that there was a dirty house or whatever.
Yes.
And then offered the reframe, the content reframing, meaning the content is the same. The context is still the same, i.e. footprints in that same house.
But the meaning changes.
The meaning of that content changed, which was, it means I'm not alone. And then, boom, problem solved.
In my life. Yes. Now, and the simple way to remember, content reframing, the content stays the same, but the meaning of that content is changed.
The meaning of it changes, right.
Context reframing is what is a different context for this.
Right. You're changing the situation.
A situation usually, where that behavior might be useful.
So if you're not changing the situation, but you've changed the meaning of something, that's a content reframe.
Right. So you're reframing the belief. That will change it. What about limitations? I can't. And you're using meta model questions. What would happen if you could?
What prevents you?
What prevents you? I shouldn't. Well, what would happen if you did? And it opens opportunities. So meta model is great for challenging yourself. Also, keep in mind too, when we first get into the meta model, I don't know anyone who's ever not done this. We become meta meddlers, as Derek Bonner used to say. We start using it on everything.
Yeah, it's annoying. How does that belief serve you?
Yeah, just constantly applying that, and it's a useless thing.
Let's do that at lunch today.
Shut up.
I'm kidding.
So anyway, we watch out for meta meddling, but it is a useful tool and you can use it on yourself as well. Make it ridiculous.
Yeah, let's touch on this one. I love this idea.
Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, so you touch on it more. Are you bringing up the our friend Adam? That's ridiculous. That intervention.
No.
Oh, okay, I thought that's where we're going to go.
Ridiculous. When the person states a belief, you can blow it up to the ridiculous. So the person said, "Oh, I can't go out without an umbrella." Okay, why? Well, because I can't get wet in the rain or I'll catch a cold and get sick.
I get you. Sorry,
That's a ridiculous
misunderstood
belief.
Where you're going with this.
So now I make it ridiculous. And I say, so every time you take a shower, you get a cold and get sick?
Well, no, that's ridiculous, Mike. Of course not.
So if you got in the shower fully dressed, you'd catch a cold? Well, no. And that starts to challenge it by breaking it down into the ridiculous.
And that's actually an important one anyway, because if people believe, I got wet, I didn't have my umbrella, I walked across the parking lot, and now I'm damp, I'm going to get sick. They're talking themselves into it, and there's more likelihood they actually will.
Right. You'll hear a lot of this kind of thing with black and white thinking. When people become emotional, remember the critical faculty largely goes offline. When we get adrenaline in the system, we switch to black and white thinking. So it's, you could be a little happier when you see your family. Oh, right. I'm just going to walk around with a big idiotic grin on my face all day. Nobody actually said that.
Nobody said that.
That's the black and white thinking.
You could have another one where somebody might say, well, I was really targeting, really tight eating, no junk food, no whatever, junk food.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, but I broke down and I had a piece of banana bread that my mom baked and brought over. And so I just thought, well, my diet's out the window for today. I might as well, eat another slice or whatever. And you could make that ridiculous and say, well, why didn't you drive over to Tim Hortons and buy a dozen donuts and eat those too? Right? So it's just, I love that.
Yeah, that's
wonderful.
Right. Now you can also, let's go ahead here, right to evidence criteria.
Okay.
And you got to ask people, well, how do you know that's true? What would have to happen for you to stop believing it?
What evidence would you need to be presented with to change your mind?
Yeah.
And there's, I can't remember the term in the book now that we were just talking about, but there's a term for a kind of belief that just can't be changed versus one that can.
Oh, yeah.
And it just can't. Anyway.
Neither can I.
I don't believe I can remember it right now.
Just like I am. And then you have to look at the evidence criteria. How will you know when the belief's changed? What will you see, hear, or feel? What happens when you imagine believing it? A lot of these beliefs will have a kinesthetic aspect to them.
Yeah, or how will you behave differently once your belief changes?
But they will have a kinesthetic basis. There will be something they feel.
Sure.
And you know, the whole,
we say, oh, I just feel it in my gut.
Yeah. Well, and you say, what does it feel like? Mm-hmm. When did you first feel it? What does that feeling remind you of? And you can make a little effect bridge here and find out how the person came to believe that. You know, in my own case, as a little kid, I believed that dentists, were freaking evil, and they had, the whole point of a dentist's office was to scare me and terrify me and hurt me. And when we came to Canada, I had English teeth. I wound up in East General Hospital because our dentist yanked out a bunch of my teeth, and my gum wouldn't stop bleeding and my blood pressure dropped. I just remember noticing, so drinking hot chocolate, looked, and it was full of blood.
Oh, isn't that nice?
And that was terrifying for me.
Yeah.
And then went back to the dentist. This guy, it was $5 for a filling, 3 for a filling, 5 for an extraction. That's how long ago this was.
Wow.
Dr. Roach, he had Parkinson's. I'm not kidding. Hands would shake, and he did fillings on secondary molars without anesthetic of any kind. You just have to grip the nurse's hands, which of course makes you tense, which makes it worse. And he started drilling for oil. And so I became terrified of the dentist. I didn't go for years. My teeth got really bad. And then finally I went to a good dentist, Paula Walshaw. She was an excellent dentist. It didn't hurt. And that challenged my belief that dentists are always terrifying.
Right.
And now I have no problem with the dentist.
So you got your new evidence.
Yeah.
Good one. I like it.
We say beliefs are like a table, right? The legs are the components that hold them up. So if you can challenge the components of this belief, they'll often fall apart.
Yeah.
And I've written too, beliefs live in clusters. What do you think that means?
Well, it makes me think of the brain and the neural net and just the idea that things are connected. So if you have one belief, there are probably other beliefs that are nearby and related in some way.
Yes. Well done, science boy. That's the most wonderful thing for
I'm looking for an example. Well, here, I believe that it is important to exercise. And therefore, because the overarching goal of that, let's say, is to be healthy, then it makes sense that I believe it's important to get good sleep. And I believe it's important to eat a good diet.
Right.
I believe it's important to laugh.
I believe it's important to laugh at you saying that. Now, if we honor the positive intention of beliefs, we said that there's a positive intention behind them. But when we honor that positive intention, when we challenge them, it makes them easier to change. When we come against that, we lose rapport.
We feel like, this belief is, that I can't talk in groups. It's trying to protect me from embarrassing myself.
Yeah.
Well, how else can I accomplish that same protection? I can be a great speaker that people look up to. That's protective. Nobody will think, you're a horrible loser. Right?
It just made me think of, I saw years ago, this redneck had a kid who flew a plane into a building on purpose. And they were interviewing him and his wife, and someone questioned their parenting, like it was poor. And the guy said, "What do you mean we're not good parents? We bought him his own TV." So there's the belief. You're a good parent, provided you can give your kid a gift and just let him sit and watch television all the time.
What do you mean by he flew a plane into a building?
Intentionally.
Like a model airplane?
No, an actual one.
Okay, that's just weird.
I know. You have to Google it. It's what do you mean? We're not good parents. We bought him his own TV. Now, you've got to remember we said you got to have rapport to change beliefs, to challenge them, or you'll risk adrenaline getting into the situation. Remember, as soon as adrenaline comes in, people start black and white thinking. Once there's anger there, it's very, very hard. Sometimes you got to back off.
Yes. Interestingly, adrenaline and epinephrine, exactly the same thing. And there was a fight over the nomenclature. Apparently, that's why there's two different names.
Language police, nomenclature.
Nomenclature, clatcher, potato. Move on.
Let's call the whole thing off. Now, the new belief on the back of the hand works wonders.
Okay,
the tapping
so this is
point, which is the triple warmer in Chinese medicine. So on the back of your non-dominant hand, between your baby finger and your ring finger, on the back of the hand, there's a channel between the fourth and fifth metacarpal bones.
Probably need
it's 2 fingertips wide. I've described it brilliantly. Anybody who can't figure it out from this needs to just get a frickin' life. So you tap it repeatedly with 2 fingers of the other hand and state your new belief in the positive. This works with ego states. So I am going to speak to this group. I'm up for this. I'm empowered. I'm feeling awesome. I'm in the zone. I'm having a blast. Whatever it is.
This is the 9 gamut, right?
9 gamut.
G-A-M, 2 M's?
No, 9 gamut comes from EFT.
Is there 2 M's
It's the triple
in gamut?
warmer. Triple warmer is the proper term.
Okay, triple warmer. If anyone Googles that image search, you'll find it. Okay, we'll put it in the show notes.
Right.
We'll find an image and throw it in the show notes.
I nearly said something wrong. Okay. Now, remember, I said, learn the meta model or learn clean language. Clean language is a remarkable tool. And the 2 Jedi questions from clean language, how do you know that's true? And tell me, anything else about that. That starts to unpack it. When you unpack a belief, you're chunking down. We call it drilling down. Yeah. You're getting the smaller chunks. That's when it will often start to fall apart.
Sure. Let's do those clean language questions. The 2 major ones are, what kind of X is that? Yeah. And what else about?
Yeah, anything else about?
Anything else or what else anything about else X? About? Those are the 2, right?
And you can there's a few that are really important. One is, how do you know that's true?
Okay.
We're just challenging. And also the fact that, the person has at some point decided to believe that, probably unconsciously.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All phobias are beliefs.
Yeah, people are not going to say, I think that I should be afraid of spiders from now on. That would be a good thing for my life. Yep. Okay. No. And the same thing with fear of public speaking or whatever, or fear of driving a car on a highway, anything like that.
Yep.
People don't just consciously choose those things for the most part.
Right. They're limiting beliefs. But if you focus on the outcome, how wonderful will you feel when you completely overcome this? Notice I'm not saying if you completely. When. We want that presupposition.
That it's happening.
If you learn to do this, what might be great about it?
Excellent.
And we said, the and yet, causing reconsideration. That's a wonderful phrase to you. We didn't really unpack that. But when you say and yet, and offer, an alternative, it enables the person to go back and rethink it and start to find holes in it. Then it will unravel. Finding ways of reframing and looking at limitations. I can't, I shouldn't. What would happen if you did? What prevents you?
Meta model questions.
Questions. And we now have the empowering question, Chris.
All right.
Take it away.
Here we go. Empowering question 4, episode 156 of Brain Software with Mike Mandel, and I'm Chris Thompson. Ask yourself, at this point in my life, when a lot of beliefs, both good and bad, have solidified, which of them are no longer useful, and what beliefs will I replace them with?
Nice. Well, that's going to cause reconsideration for sure. Chris, I've got a Meta 5, which I call selective amnesia. For those of you just tuning in, it's a metaphor, but it's even better. And I call it selective amnesia because I've noticed there are gaps in my memory, but they are all around loss. And as you know, this has been a rough week for me. Our Bengal cat, Tesla, we had to have him euthanized. He was my baby cheetah. And when we don't have kids, like my wife and I, your cats, your pets become your family. And so I feel like I lost a friend and a family member. And it was being kind of rough. And I'd like to do a podcast on grief and sadness sometime because I got some great tools for dealing with that. But the bottom line is these spaces in my memory were all around loss. For example, my mother died of cancer in our home. We had a hospital bed brought into our home, 1977. She knew she was fading, and we had some home care come in, a nurse come in once a day. Now I knew about her impending death maybe the first day of May, around 1st or 2nd of May, 77. And she passed away July the 5th, 77, buried on the 7th of the 7th, 77. So that's all May, all June, and the beginning of July. I was home. I canceled my shows. I stayed in to look after her, rigged up a bell so she could ding it and call me if I was on another floor, if she needed something. She was very, very ill. But do you know, Chris, I can only remember literally about 40 seconds of that entire 9-week period. It's just gone.
Yeah.
And I realized we had this beautiful orange cat when I was a teenager, Honey. We still had him when I was 18, so I wasn't a little kid. But my memory is then we just didn't have the cat anymore. I don't know what happened. Did the cat die? Was he euthanized? I have no idea. And I've got a number of those selective memory things in my life. And I don't understand them other than to say they must be protective mechanisms. And if that's what my unconscious wants to do, I'm just going to leave them alone.
Thanks, everybody. This has been Brain Software, episode 156. And what else have you just forgotten?
Ooh.
Have a good time. Enjoy changing beliefs in yourself and in others. We recommend the awesome book, How to Have Impossible Conversations. And we hope you come on over to MikeMandelHypnosis.com, where you can sign up for a free trial of our online hypnosis training, the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy, because it's awesome. We'll talk to you again in 157.
Thanks again.
And
good night.
Oh, there once was a boy, and he owned a raccoon, and they went to the dune in the middle of June. Then under the moon, the boy sang a tune with a voice like a loon. Then he found a balloon, and he took the balloon to be friends very soon. But the next afternoon, swimming in the lagoon, he saw a baboon who looked like Daniel Boone. So he threw a harpoon while he chewed on a prune, feeling like a tycoon in a Disney cartoon. Then the little white balloon, it flew to the moon, and now he is dead, 'cause it flooded his bed.
Best song ever.